Professor De Castro, can you tell us in brief, the significance of this four-nation multilateral naval exercise in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, number one, it's not the numbers, but the fact that you have four maritime, maritime countries, no?
Okay.
Tatlo dyan, of course, major maritime powers. Australia, the United States, and of course, Japan, joining the Philippines. So the fact that it is a multilateral maritime cooperative activity has a lot of significance. Meaning these four countries have common security concerns and have indicated their desire, of course, to cooperate. Ang larger picture nito, and of course, lumabas rin sa mga statements, no? Came out in the statement, they're upholding the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, and more significantly, reaffirming the July 12, 2016 Arbitral Ruling on the South China Sea, which of course rendered China's expansive claim in the South China Sea based on the 9-dash line as invalid or illegal. Or not legal, ika nga.
Okay, Professor.
Professor, ang importante dyan is how China reacted Tatanong ko sa anak kay Manny and Patrick if you have more details nga about, kasi ang announcement ng China nagkaroon daw ng combat patrol, combat drills, ang People's Liberation Army. Pero, hindi naman sinabi kung saan, kung sa Hainan yun, kanila naman yun Meron silang area talaga na sa kanila. Where did they hold the combat drills? Kasi ang sabi din ni General Browner, hindi naman daw combat drill yung ginawa. Yung pagmamanman doon sa ating yung four-nation drills natin. So, significant yan dahil malalaman natin how China reacts kapag may ganyang freedom of navigation within an area that China is claiming as its own. So, meron ba kayong detalye kung saan at kailan nangyari yung quote-unquote combat drills ng China? At saka kung totoong combat drills sila, wala naman. Usually, nagre-release ng picture ang PLA kapag sinasabi nilang ganyan.
Okay.
Based nga ho sa sinabi ni Director Andulong ng Department of National Defense, we expect China to react. So that is expected, no? Of course, ang case in point, no? I don't know if you remember the second maritime cooperative activity that was conducted early this year when you have an entire U.S. carrier battle group and a number of Philippine Navy ships. I cannot remember exactly how and what. And China announced we're also conducting our own combat drills. Pero they never showed any picture, they never show any film clip that it actually happened.
Normally, sinashadow lang nila yung sinashadow lang nila yung drills natin, no? Madalas pagka nagko-conduct ng PONOPS yung US, malapit sa kanilang mga island, sinashadow lang nila
Okay. So when
Professor combat drill
Professor De Castro, when China,
wala namang pinakitang pruweba.
So Professor De Castro, when China responds to a joint four-nation maritime patrol from our side, and China responds with a combat drill, are we supposed to take that as with a grain of salt? Parang ganun ba yun?
Kumbaga, it's become routine in the South China Sea. So we do certain actions. China react. This is what we call action-reaction process.
But there's no evidence towards that. What you're suggesting, Professor De Castro, there's no evidence that a combat drill was actually conducted.
The Chinese have not shown any evidence that actual combat drills were conducted.
Wouldn't U.S. intelligence know?
No, we don't. China hasn't shown any evidence.
Okay.
Although,
so, Professor, yung announcement kaya is geared toward the domestic audience. Yung announcement ng China, you think? Kasi announcement lang naman Para kaya sa mga tao nila yon.
Oo, paso na sabi, meron ginagawa.
Of course, Patriot, the Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army have to show that they are, of course, upholding and protecting what they call their maritime rights. And of course, the territorial waters in the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea.
Ang only
Kasi
evidence, Ami, yung ano eh.
yung announcement nila, sabi nila, the situation is under control. Yung announcement nila about the combat drill, ang sabi nila, the situation in the South China Sea is under control. So parang directed siya sa Chinese. Di ba?
Oh, domestic audience.
Yes.
Pero Ami,
hindi
yung...
siya actual na ano. Kasi importante yun eh. Parang testing din yan eh. Kung how Beijing will react kapag ganitong nag-freedom of navigation na yung international community sa waters na kiniklaim ng China.
Yes. Pero ang only evidence lang, Ami, yung nasa sa Basbuanga, yung dalawang People's Liberation Army Navy na nakita nung...
Pero nanonood lang nga daw.
Nanonood lang. Monitor lang.
Professor De
not
Castro,
combat
where do all these actions, where do you see all these actions leading to?
Well, at this moment in time, it's just a case of what we call routine action-reaction. Sooner or later, you might have a situation of actual brinkmanship.
Okay.
And of course, I hope it will not lead to the inevitable. But, we cannot discount that possibility.
Okay. So we've heard the word deterrence used before regarding these actions by the Philippines and its allies or its partners. Deterrence, meaning to say, this show of force is supposed to deter Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea. But could it also lead to an actual outbreak of fighting?
Well, they also use the term interoperability. So when it means interoperability, that's your ability to conduct joint operations. So it's deterrence, but it also look at the worst-case scenario that both allies, the two allies, the Philippines and the U.S., and of course two other U.S. allies, Japan and Australia, might be conducting, not only actions that are deemed operations other than war, but actual, I will not discounting the possibility, outright use of force. Not only in the South China Sea, but also, of course, north of Luzon, and that is, of course, Taiwan.
But, Professor,
Because
that would increase...
we are basically surrounded by two flashpoints. Number one, of course, is what we focus on the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. The other one, which is, I think, brewing, is, of course, Taiwan.
Lately, Professor De Castro, there's been more of focus on, the West Philippine Sea seems to be the bigger flashpoint and not Taiwan. Why is this so?
I beg your pardon. Can you make it louder?
In recent months, we're seeing that the West Philippine Sea is the bigger flashpoint rather than Taiwan. Why the shift? Why is it shifting from Taiwan to the West Philippine Sea?
First of all, in terms of the Chinese priority, the Chinese has emphasized in 2010, the Chinese came out with what they call their three core interests, meaning on these issues, China considers these issues non-negotiable. So what are those three non-negotiable issues on the Chinese? Tibet, South China Sea, and Taiwan. But of course, the Chinese Communist Party has always emphasized among the three core interests, Taiwan is the most important.
Of the three.
Yes, and if you recall, Professor, last month, nag-testify si Indo-Pacific Commander John Aquilino sa Congress, and he predicted that China might invade Taiwan in 2027.
Yes, I've heard that statement.
Well, what do you think, Professor De Castro?
Well, from the perspective of the Philippines, since we are surrounded by two major flashpoints, we have to be ready for whatever would happen. I think the government is already setting the pace. That's why we already have the what they call the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept.
Okay.
Pero Professor, what do you think will be the impact on Beijing of this four-nation naval drill? Will it reduce the aggressive actions of China toward us in the West Philippine Sea, or will it intensify? Will it see the drills as provocation?
Well, the Chinese are not very happy by the fact that we have challenged China. There's been a dramatic change in Philippine foreign policy under President Bongbong Marcos Jr. This was, of course, implied by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi when he called the Secretary Enrique Manalo a day after Christmas. So they're already indicating that they're not happy with the changes. They're not happy with the fact that we have increased the number of enhanced defense cooperation agreement sites from 5 to 9. And of course, 3 of them are located in northern Luzon, not very far from Taiwan. So we expect more pressure from the Chinese.
Okay, Professor De Castro, you mentioned the 3 EDCAs or the 4 the new EDCA sites, at least in northern Luzon. It seems like there's been slow progress in terms of any build-up on those areas. What's happening? Is the U.S. short on
I'm sorry,
resources?
I'm not privy to whatever progress that's happening there. Probably have to direct the question to the Department of National Defense or the Armed Forces of the Philippines. I think this is a type of development that you would rather make sure that the public eye is not focused on it, given the fact that we have a number of legislators who are very critical with our close security relationship with the United States. I need not mention their name.
Okay.
They're very critical about the improvement in Philippine-U.S. security relations. They always turn a blind eye to Chinese coercive actions against us.
Okay, you mentioned that you'd rather not put a spotlight on what's happening in those EDCA sites. I understand.
I think the U.S. is also looking for funding for these EDCA sites because they already committed to build 23 projects in 7 sites, 5 in the existing and 2 in the new sites. A total of $109 million had been committed, but this will go to airports, seaports, warehouses in these areas.
You wrote, Manny, that these EDCA sites are being either supply
logistics hub.
Logistics hubs.
Yes. Because the U.S. is building a network of logistic hubs in Indo-Pacific area. They are scattering their forces because, according to Kurt Campbell, when Joe Biden assumed office, that the bases in Japan and Korea are very vulnerable to ballistic missile attacks. So they are trying to scatter their forces, and they created this Pacific Deterrence Initiative, building missile defenses in all areas. And I heard that they might put up some missile defenses in the Philippines.
Yeah, I've seen a paper on that, Professor De Castro, the idea of deploying medium-range missiles. Are we part of that plan? Is the Philippines part of that plan?
Well, according to President Marcos, if a situation would call for, he already gave the condition there.
Okay.
Exactly 1 year ago, during his speech, during the commemoration of Bataan Day, April 9, 2023, if China, he used the term, if the hostile forces will come to the Philippines, then we have the option to do so. Again, I remember, Patrick, when you asked the question regarding progress in those enhanced defense cooperation agreement sites, the CSIS, Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, under Mr. Greg Poling, came out with an issue detailing the progress that had happened in those EDCA sites.
So there have been movements. There has been some progress.
I think they used satellite, and they were able to show certain progress.
Okay.
Well, in this coming Balikatan exercise, we'll be seeing an air defense exercise for the first time.
So those sites are ready. I mean,
maybe.
They're ready. We just don't know.
Yes, but I think they're bringing in some Patriot missiles for air defense.
Can we go back to the subject of medium-range missiles, Professor De Castro? I'm just curious about your personal position in this matter, from a strategic point of view.
That's a possibility. That's a possibility, land-based, especially from the Army. But I think the U.S. Army has already indicated, and the United States Marines, that they might bring HIMARS.
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 But they're mobile. They're mobile. Even, of course, it's possibility that they will be deploying land-based intermediate-range ballistic missiles. They'll be mobile.
Not this medium
They will
range.
not be put in, permanent structures.
Okay.
Well, even the
Professor.
Patriot are mobile.
Professor,
Yeah.
by November, election na sa US. Just in case, because Donald Trump is, according to the surveys, still very popular among Americans. Kung sakasakaling he returns to the presidency, do you see any shift in US policy toward this region of the world?
Americans, of course, American society is very much divided. A lot of issues divide American immigration, trade, in terms of U.S. support to Ukraine. But only one issue unifies the Americans, and that's China.
China.
So when it comes to the issue regarding the strategic competition with China, there is a bipartisan consensus.
So there will be no change in a policy if Donald Trump wins.
Donald Trump would probably focus all the attention here in the region. Much to the, of course, to the dilemma, much to the, what do you call it, at the expense of the Europeans. And, of course, at the expense of Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Professor De Castro, some have said that yes, Donald Trump will keep up the policy of trying to contain China, but it will probably take more take the shape of economic leverages rather than defense leverages. What can you say about that, Professor De Castro?
Yes, I already indicated that if he wins, I think he will impose a 60% tariff on all Chinese products entering the United States.
Will that mean?
And I guess he will have more deployment in the Indo-Pacific region.
Okay.
So the U.S. is trying to cripple the Chinese economy.
But China is the biggest trading partner of the US. Their economies are intertwined.
Right.
The two largest economies are so closely intertwined. Will the US jeopardize that relationship, economic ties? China is the biggest holder of US currency. Siyempre, iisipin din yun ni Trump.
Do you want me to answer that, Annie?
Yes. What's your view on this? Yes.
Historically, if you look at the First World War and the Second World War, economic interdependence did not matter.
Okay. First World
First
War.
World War,
especially.
Britain, Germany, and France, their economies are all intertwined.
Right.
Did it matter when the first shot was fired, leading to the First World War? Second World War, let's focus on the Pacific. Japanese and U.S. economy were very much linked. Japan was very much dependent on the United States for oil,
Yeah.
and scrap metal. That did not matter when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Historically, economic interdependence do not matter when strategy, nationalism, and conflict breaks out.
Okay, Professor De Castro, last question. At least our director has been telling us to go on Gab. But anyway, sisingit ko lang, Professor De Castro, it has been said that China is currently the largest navy in the world. But is it safe to say that the U.S. still has
Advantage.
superiority in terms of technology?
Superiority in terms of tonnage. It's superiority in terms of type of ship. The Chinese Navy is big because many of its ships are frigates, corvettes that are primarily coastal. The United States has less ships, but because most of their ships are ocean-going, they're blue Navy ships. Destroyers, cruisers, and of course nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, nuclear-powered attack submarines, and nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines. They are for what you call blue water operation.
Okay,
And of
so
course, if the United States Navy would face the Chinese Navy head-on in the Indo-Pacific, it will not be alone. It will be supported by the second largest,
Japan.
the
Japan.
third largest navy in the world and the most modern, and that is the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force.
Yeah.
Then you have to factor in, of course, the Royal Australian Navy and probably even the ROK Navy.
And Indian Navy.
Indian, yes.
Yeah.
Indian.
Are we going to
Okay.
see? Are we going to see an Indian Navy participation in this joint patrol?
Possibly, yes. Yes, possibly.
They are
Yeah,
interested.
sooner.
Yeah.
Yes. They have a score to settle with the Chinese.
What happened yesterday was the second quad.
Second
The
point.
first quad includes India.
Yes.
This time, India is not in the
India.
picture, but
Yeah.
the Philippines is.
Yes.
So, in short, Professor De Castro, when push comes to shove, we can rest assured that since the Philippines is now very much invested in this conflict, or in this brewing conflict, when push comes to shove, okay tayo. I mean,
No, I won't say it. I'd rather not see it happen. Pero one advantage, of course, of the United States Navy and, of course, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, they are seasoned. They have been tested.
Yes.
Second World War, they've been tested. During the Cold War, they've been tested. The Chinese Navy, although it's big, it's modern, its weapon system, its doctrine, its ability to operate far from its coast have not been tested.
okay. Sabi nga nila, isang aircraft carrier daw ng China, dating yung galing
Ukraine.
Galing Ukraine, dating
Baryag.
Oo,
Yes.
yun. Parang hotel daw o something like that. Di naman.
Hindi naman. Parang luma na eh. Oo. Pero yung Chinese Navy is building 3 more aircraft carriers. So by the end of
Yes.
10 years, they will have at least 6. No? Pero ang US has 11.
But experience-wise, Manny, iba yung experience ng
Aminado
United
China,
States Navy.
behind
Yes.
sila eh. Diba? Sa naval
Operating
development,
an air-
aminado sila.
Yes, Professor De
If I
Castro.
may intervene,
Yeah.
operating
Yes.
an aircraft carrier entails tradition and, of course,
Yes.
experience. The United States Navy has been operating carriers since the 1920s.
Right. Okay.
China is only started operating a carrier in 2011, 2012, when they deployed the Liaoning.
Yes.
Okay.
Tsaka
Okay.
hindi pa expert
Okay.
sa landing.
Seasoned and experienced.
Oo.
So, ganon. Anyway, Professor Renato De Castro, thank you so much for your time.